The Galactic Council prepared for polite words and treaties. Instead, the docking bay trembled as a Terran warship slid from stealth, its hull bristling with weapons. The aliens had set the table for dinner, and discovered they'd invited a wolf. The Galactic Council chamber prided itself on order. Speeches were delivered with rehearsed pomp, translators hummed in perfect harmony, and the galaxy's most powerful empires congratulated themselves on their endless civility. Then the alarms sounded. Not the subtle, diplomatic tones reserved for minor disruptions. No, this was the shriek reserved for threats so dire that even council guards reached for weapons they were never meant to use. The giant holoscreen at the center flickered, projecting the cause: a Terran warship entering restricted space. Impossible, hissed Chancellor Varric of the Corthan Dominion, his 6 mandibles clattering in agitation. Humans were told this was a diplomatic summit. Their ship registration was listed as a courier vessel, finished Sthala, the gelatinous envoy of the Mer. Her translucent form pulsed uneasily. That thing is not a courier. The holoscreen rotated, displaying the massive silhouette in perfect clarity. Jagged hull plating, weapons arrays bristling like spines, and an engine signature so powerful the chamber's environmental systems shuddered trying to compensate. The designation shimmered across the screen in blocky human script: TSV Nemesis. A ripple of unease moved across the council. They had expected humans to send ambassadors in tailored suits, all smiles and naive eagerness. Instead, Earth had sent a predator wrapped in steel. Perhaps it is ceremonial, offered Minister Jor of the Rillick, his voice quivering. Humans are dramatic. From the corner, the tiny Aviril delegate squeaked, "Dramatic is arriving with a parade. This is arriving with an executioner's axe." The chamber lights dimmed as a live transmission override took hold. A human appeared, tall and composed, wearing the dark formal uniform of Earth's Defense Command. His expression was polite, almost warm, as though he'd just wandered into a neighborhood barbecue. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council," he began, voice calm but carrying the weight of command. "Captain Elias Mercer of the Terran ship Nemesis. It's a pleasure to be unexpectedly among you." Every translator in the room confirmed the same meaning, yet somehow his tone suggested something more, a man perfectly aware of the disruption he'd caused, and entirely unbothered by it. Varric leaned forward, mandibles twitching. "Captain Mercer, the Terran delegation was supposed to send diplomats. Explain this violation." Mercer smiled faintly. "Oh, we did send a diplomat." He paused, letting the silence thicken before continuing. "Me." Laughter erupted from some species and used to human subtleties. A Rillick minister choked on the sound, realizing Mercer wasn't joking. "You arrive in a battleship," accused Sthala, her gelatinous surface bubbling with agitation, "armed with enough firepower to level half our fleets. This is diplomacy?" Mercer tilted his head, as though weighing his words. "In our culture, when you want to be taken seriously, you dress for the occasion. Some wear fine silks. Others bring something less fragile." His smile sharpened. "We thought this would ensure no one mistook Earth's voice as faint." The chamber fell into uneasy quiet. It was the Quarn representative, a reptilian towering over most, who finally snapped. "Your presence here is intimidation. You mock the sanctity of this council." Mercer clasped his hands behind his back. "Intimidation? That would require intent to frighten. I assure you, Nemesis is here in peace." He paused just long enough to let the name of the ship sink in. "Though, of course, she defends herself quite capably." The Aviril delegate squeaked again, "Why would you even build such a vessel if peace is your goal?" Mercer chuckled, low and easy. "Because history teaches us peace is best preserved when breaking it would be unthinkable." The reply landed heavily. Some nodded reluctantly, recognizing the logic. Others hissed in outrage. In the shadows of the chamber, a few species whispered warnings. The humans had been underestimated for decades, dismissed as latecomers, reckless, too quick to joke in matters of galactic significance. Yet here stood one of their officers, calm as still water, backed by a warship that could blot out a city. "Captain Mercer," said Chancellor Varick, his tone ice-sharp. "You are out of line. This council will not tolerate veiled threats." Mercer inclined his head slightly, the gesture respectful yet firm. "Chancellor, I've threatened no one. I'm simply present. If my ship's existence feels like a threat—" His eyes glinted with something colder than his smile. "Perhaps the question is why." The words sliced through the chamber like a blade. The councillors shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered about sanctioning Earth. Others muttered about blockades. But none could ignore the weight of Nemesis, hovering in orbit above their very world, ready and waiting. Finally, Minister Jor tried again, desperate to defuse the tension. "Then, what is it you seek, Captain? Surely humans don't intend to begin their relationship with the Council through provocation." Mercer's gaze softened, voice once again charming. "We seek friendship, mutual respect, the same values the Council proclaims. But respect, ladies and gentlemen, is earned, not requested." Earth thought it wise to make our first words clear, before any misunderstandings could fester. The phrasing was elegant, yet none missed the undertone. Misunderstandings with humans tend to end badly. Varick hissed, mandibles grinding. "You play a dangerous game, human." Mercer allowed himself the faintest grin. "We've always been rather good at games, Chancellor. Especially the dangerous ones." The chamber erupted into argument, dozens of species shouting in overlapping tongues, translators stuttering to keep up. Words like sanction, warship, and expulsion echoed through the vast dome. Mercer stood unflinching on the central screen, posture relaxed, as though he had expected every reaction. Perhaps he had. When the council finally quieted, Sthala spoke again, her gelatinous body dim with unease. "Then let us make this simple. Captain Mercer, swear your ship will not engage in hostile action during your stay." Mercer nodded slowly. "Of course. Nemesis will fire only if fired upon. That's not just a promise, it's a tradition." Some counselors sighed with relief. Others stiffened. They knew human traditions were often written in blood. Before the feed cut, Mercer added one last line, delivered with perfect courtesy. "And for what it's worth, thank you for the warm welcome. I look forward to learning so much from you all." The transmission ended, but the weight of his words, and the silent shadow of Nemesis, remained. The council chamber did not return to order after Mercer's transmission ended. The image of his calm smile lingered like smoke in the air, thick and inescapable. Delegates shifted uneasily, each species interpreting his presence through the lens of their own fears. The AV-Rill ambassador, no larger than a child's backpack, trembled on her hovering perch. He said nothing, yet everything was a warning. Why send a warship to a summit unless their aim is coercion? The Quarn general slammed his scaled fist on the table. "Because humans are exactly what we feared, predators disguised as diplomats. They mean to intimidate, to establish dominance before we can place them properly in the hierarchy." Chancellor Varick's mandibles clicked. "Hierarchy only exists if the participants recognize it. Do you think Captain Mercer cares for our hierarchies? No. He carries his own." Across the table, Sthala pulsed, faint bioluminescence swirling in slow patterns. "Perhaps we should consider another explanation. Humans do not follow the rhythms we expect. Their minds work strangely. Their culture thrives on irony and spectacle." "Spectacle?" growled the Quarn. "That vessel could strip the paint from our orbital rings with a warning shot." Sthaler's translucent surface rippled. "And yet, it hovers idle. If they wanted destruction, we would already be ash." A silence stretched. That truth was hard to refute. Minister Jor, his feathered frills quivering nervously, leaned forward. "We must decide swiftly. Do we condemn Earth for this breach, or do we allow the performance?" "Performance?" Varick hissed. "Yes," Jor said, beak clicking. "Humans are storytellers, are they not? Perhaps this is theater. A deliberate scene. We are the audience, and they wish to shape our impression. The AV-Ril ambassador squeaked. If this is theater, I don't care for the ending. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Nemesis held position. Inside its command deck, Captain Elias Mercer observed the chaos he had sown with quiet satisfaction. Transmission replay complete, reported Lieutenant Hayes, her tone dry as dust. The council looked like a nest of startled pigeons. Mercer leaned back in his chair. Then the message landed. Sir, Hayes said carefully, you really believe antagonizing half the galaxy is the best way to open diplomatic relations? Not antagonizing, Mercer corrected, eyes still on the star-sprinkled void beyond the viewport. Clarifying. They needed to understand the table has more than one sharp edge now. Another officer muttered, still feels like we walked into a poker game with a grenade. Mercer's lips curved. Funny thing about poker, everyone thinks it's about the cards. It's not. It's about how steady your hand looks when you push your chips in. Back in the chamber, the debate shifted from fear to strategy. We cannot allow Earth unchecked power, Varric insisted. If we reward this behavior, other young species will follow their example. Then we test them, suggested the Quarren general. His scales glimmered under the artificial lights. Challenge their captain. See how far their arrogance extends. And if we test too far? Asked Sthala softly. You saw his eyes. He is not bluffing. Minister Jor raised a wing, feathers trembling. Perhaps, a middle path. Invite Mercer to stand before us in person. If his aim is theater, let him perform on our stage. Remove the warship from the equation. That is folly, spat Varric. Once inside our walls, he controls the narrative. Better the narrative than the orbit, Jor countered. Murmurs rippled. The idea gained traction, fragile but real. Elsewhere in the chamber, two lesser envoys whispered privately, far from the main debate. Do you realize, hissed the smaller one, a thin-scaled merchant delegate, what this means? If the humans built one of these ships, they can build more. The other, a furred envoy from the lore, narrowed his eyes. If there are more, our fleets are obsolete. The balance shifts overnight. Then why reveal it? Because they want us to know. Both fell silent, staring at the ceiling where the hologram of Nemesis had been moments earlier. The human captain's faint smile seemed burned into memory. On Nemesis, Mercer stood at the panoramic viewport, hands clasped behind his back. His officers remained restless, but his calm anchored them. Sir, Hayes asked again, do you think they'll summon you? Mercer didn't look away from the stars. They'll have no choice. Predators hate uncertainty more than they hate rivals. They'll want to measure me, see if the mask cracks. And if they realize you're not bluffing? Mercer's grin was almost imperceptible. Then the game gets interesting. The council finally voted. By narrow margin, they invited Captain Mercer to appear in person at the chamber, without his ship. The message transmitted swiftly. Nemesis received it in silence. On the bridge, Hayes read the data aloud. They request your immediate presence at the council chamber. Alone. They specify without military escort. Mercer raised a brow. Ah, the invitation to step into the lion's den. How thoughtful. Permission to say this sounds like a trap? Hayes asked flatly. Of course it's a trap. Mercer turned, his voice carrying that strange mix of amusement and gravity. But it's also an opportunity. Traps reveal more about the hunter than the prey. He straightened his uniform, smoothing the dark fabric with precise hands. Prepare the shuttle. Let's give them their performance. In the chamber, Varric paced. If the human accepts, we control the stage. If he refuses, we expose him as cowardly. Unless, Sthala murmured, his presence itself is the trap. The words silenced the chamber again. None liked how easily they fit. As the Nemesis shuttle disengaged and began its descent, council sensors tracked every detail. Hull plating denser than expected. Engine emissions tightly controlled. Even the shuttle felt like it was designed more for surviving ambushes than transporting diplomats. Inside, Mercer sat with the casual composure of a man boarding a commuter train. He checked his cufflinks, adjusted his collar, and said to no one in particular, "Let's see how good the galaxy really is at poker." The chamber prepared for his arrival. Guards lined the entrances. Delegates whispered wagers on how quickly the human would falter under pressure. But beneath the noise, a darker current ran. For the first time in centuries, the Council was not debating trade routes or sanctions. They were preparing to face a predator who smiled while walking into their den. The shuttle touched down. The doors began to open. The chamber held its breath. The shuttle doors opened with a hiss, and the council chamber fell silent. Dozens of species, each cloaked in the splendor of their civilizations, turned as one to the human stepping onto the polished floor. Captain Elias Mercer didn't rush. His pace was steady, measured, the gait of a man arriving at a meeting he'd already decided the outcome of. His uniform, dark and unadorned, reflected none of the pomp expected in a hall built for pageantry. A faint smile hovered at the edge of his mouth, calm enough to unsettle. 2 guards, hulking Brathen warriors, flanked him, their claws tapping against their weapons. Mercer acknowledged neither, as if their size and teeth were no more than scenery. Chancellor Varick's mandibles clicked, projecting authority. "Captain Mercer, you stand before the Galactic Council, summoned to explain your people's unusual choice of emissary." Mercer inclined his head, courteous. "Chancellor, Councillors, a pleasure to be here. Though I must admit, you seem surprised to see me walk in rather than bow." Whispers rippled through the chamber. Politeness mixed with subtle provocation, exactly what the council feared from humans. Minister Jor adjusted his feathers, voice tight. "Protocol dictates diplomats, not war captains, represent their worlds. Why send a battleship instead of a delegation?" Mercer's smile deepened a fraction. "Where I come from, diplomats are safer when they arrive with someone who knows how to keep them alive. The nemesis is simply insurance." "Insurance?" barked the Quarn general. "You brought a doomsday vessel into sovereign space and dare call it insurance?" Mercer folded his hands behind his back. "In my experience, insurance is something you hope never to use, but are grateful for when trouble arrives. Unless, of course, the galaxy is entirely safe, free of war, betrayal, or opportunism." The pause that followed was heavy. Several delegates bristled. Others looked away, unwilling to meet the human's steady gaze. Sthala, the bioluminescent envoy, pulsed faintly. "Captain Mercer, perhaps you misunderstand. The Council does not prey on its guests." Mercer's eyes softened, though the warmth felt sharpened. "That's comforting. But where I come from, promises are strongest when tested. Trust is a currency, and I've learned not to gamble lightly." The Quarn general leaned forward, claws scraping the table. "You insult us by your presence." Mercer tilted his head. "On the contrary, General, I honor you. I brought my finest ship, my best crew, and my undivided attention. Surely, that speaks to the respect Earth holds for this council." His words struck with deliberate duality, compliment wrapped in subtle menace. Respect, in human terms, came armed. The AV Rill ambassador, voice trembling, spoke next. "And if you are asked, ordered, to withdraw your warship immediately?" Mercer clasped his hands loosely in front. "Then I would of course obey. But I would also be forced to interpret such a demand as a declaration that Earth's safety is not welcome here. I suspect that would disappoint my people. They were rather excited about meeting the neighbors." Gasps scattered through the chamber. Varick's mandibles clacked furiously. "Is that a threat?" Mercer raised a brow, polite as ever. "No more than a weather forecast. If you close the skies, don't be surprised when storms gather elsewhere." Sthaller's glow flickered brighter, an almost nervous rhythm. "Captain, your metaphors are difficult. Are you warning us, or offering cooperation?" "Both," Mercer said simply. The two are not mutually exclusive. Tension thickened, but curiosity gnawed at the delegates. The galaxy had expected humans to crawl to the council seeking validation. Instead, here was a man who treated them as equals, or worse, as players at his table. Minister Jor finally broke the silence. Captain, Earth is a young world. Barely a century in spaceflight. Yet you stride here as if centuries of empire lay behind you. Why? Mercer's gaze swept the chamber. Because youth does not mean weakness. Sometimes, the young see what the old no longer dare. And sometimes, the wolf pup already knows how to bite. The Quarren general snarled, but the metaphor landed. Unease rippled through species who had underestimated humanity. One delegate, a law representative with silver fur, leaned forward. If Earth seeks partnership, speak it plainly. If Earth seeks war, admit it. Enough games. Mercer's expression sharpened, still polite. Partnership, of course. War is wasteful. But understand this, partnership requires recognition. Earth is not asking to be tolerated. We're here to stand, without leash, without cage. Equal footing. Anything less. He let the words hang, unfinished but heavy. Varric hissed. And if we deny you? Mercer smiled at last, teeth faintly visible. Then history will remember this chamber as the place where an empire turned its back on opportunity. And opportunity has sharp teeth when rejected. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, fear, anger, speculation. Through it all, Mercer stood motionless, unshaken by the chaos he had orchestrated. His silence was its own form of dominance, forcing others to measure themselves against it. Sthola finally pulsed a calm wave of light. Perhaps it is wiser to pause, to deliberate in private before deciding Earth's status. Agreed, muttered several voices. Mercer gave a courteous nod. Of course. I'll await your decision. Take your time, though not too much. My crew grows restless when kept waiting. The Quarren general hissed. You mean your ship grows restless? Mercer's smile widened fractionally. Ships are like their captains, General. We keep each other honest. When he exited, escorted by guards, the chamber erupted into furious debate. He came here to dictate terms. Varric roared. Or to test our resolve, countered Sthola. If he wished to dictate, he would not have asked. He would have taken. The Aviril ambassador quivered. And what if this was only the beginning? What if more of their ships wait unseen? Whispers swelled. The possibility chilled even the boldest. Back aboard the shuttle, Hayes greeted Mercer with a skeptical look. That went well. Mercer settled into his seat, calm as ever. They're rattled. Good. Sir, forgive me, but rattled governments don't always make rational choices. Mercer clasped his hands loosely. That's the point. Rationality favors the status quo. Fear makes them recalculate. And when they do, they'll see that Earth isn't the variable. It's the constant they can't ignore. Hayes shook her head. You're playing a dangerous game. Mercer's faint smile returned. That's the only kind worth playing. In the chamber, as the counselors argued, one truth settled among them like a shadow. Humanity had not come begging. Humanity had arrived with teeth hidden behind a courteous grin. For the first time in generations, the council felt like prey. The council chamber had never felt heavier. Debate stretched into the night cycle, voices raw, tempers frayed. Some pushed for compromise, others demanded Earth be expelled, and a few whispered about neutralizing the nemesis before it became a legend. At last, consensus formed, not unity, but desperation disguised as resolve. The human must be shown his limits, Varric declared, mandibles clacking in finality. We will summon Captain Mercer again. Extend courtesy, then tighten the noose. How? Sthola asked, her bioluminescence dim with unease. The Quarren general's fangs gleamed. We've seeded interdiction mines along his approach vector. If the nemesis resists or flees, it will be shredded before reinforcements arrive. Jor fluffed his feathers nervously. And if it does not resist? Then we strip it of dignity, the general growled. Disarm the ship, strip its pride, and Earth will crawl back into its hole. The chamber murmured, some reluctant, others eager. Fear twisted into aggression, the ancient pattern of empires cornered by the unknown. When Mercer returned, the trap already waited. He walked into the chamber as though the air weren't crackling with rehearsed deceit. His uniform was pristine, his stride measured. He looked less like a man walking into an ambush than a professor striding into a lecture hall. Captain Mercer, Chancellor Varick greeted, voice dripping with authority. The council has deliberated. We've reached a decision. Mercer inclined his head. I expected as much. It must have been difficult to decide whether to embrace or restrain us. That stung. Varick continued stiffly. Earth will be granted probationary observer status. Conditional, supervised. Your ship will remain under escort. Its weapons will be disabled until trust is earned. Polite words, sharpened like knives. The Quarn General leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Do you accept these terms? Mercer's gaze swept the chamber. Calm, amused, patient in a way that mocked their haste. I appreciate the offer, he said evenly. But I must decline. A ripple of shock. Declining the council was unheard of. You decline. Varick thundered. You have no position from which to negotiate. Mercer's faint smile widened. On the contrary. You have no position from which to threaten. The Quarn General slammed his claws against the table. Your arrogance will be your undoing. Even now, your battleship sits in a web of interdiction charges. At our signal, it will be ashes. Gasps erupted. Some counselors hadn't known the full plan until that moment. Mercer tilted his head, as though weighing the statement like a curious puzzle. Then he chuckled, a low, polite sound. Ah, so that's what you call them. Charges. Webs. Clever. He clasped his hands behind his back. I wondered how long it would take before someone admitted to the trap. The chamber froze. You are new, Varick whispered. Of course, Mercer said lightly. My sensors picked up the mines the moment they went active. Sloppy placement, by the way. 2 of them were misaligned by half a degree. The Quarn General snarled, but Mercer's tone never shifted from casual courtesy. But here's the problem, Mercer continued. While you were busy weaving nets, the Nemesis wasn't idle. We released counter-drones into your minefield hours ago. Right now, your little web has been repurposed, rewired, retuned. The delegates leaned forward, fear rising like static. Rewired? For what? Jor croaked. Mercer's eyes gleamed. For you. At my signal, those charges are no longer pointed at my ship. They're pointed inward, toward this station's defense grid. Your walls. Your shield generators. Your sense of safety. Silence thickened, broken only by the hiss of someone's breath. You wouldn't dare, Varick whispered. Mercer stepped closer, lowering his voice without losing that veneer of calm. I came here in good faith. With courtesy. With patience. And what did you do? You set a trap. You planned to cripple us. You revealed your true nature. He let the words hang, heavier than steel. Now you'll learn ours. Stolares' glow flickered urgently. Captain Mercer, wait. Perhaps compromise is still possible. Mercer glanced at her, the faintest softening in his eyes. I hope so. My people prefer peace. But peace requires respect. He looked back to the council, his smile now edged like a blade. So let's make this simple. You will grant Earth equal status. You will recognize our sovereignty. You will not attempt sabotage again. In exchange, he spread his hands slightly. I'll leave your defenses intact. The Quarn General roared, slamming the table. Empty threats. You won't dare fire on the council itself. Mercer's wrist calm chimed. A calm voice. Captain, the reconfigured minds are locked. One word, and this station goes dark. The color drained from several delegates' faces. Mercer's smile never faltered. Do you wish to test that theory, General? The chamber collapsed into frantic murmurs. Some begged for caution. Others seethed with humiliation. But the balance had tipped. They weren't predators circling prey anymore. They were animals realizing the cage door had been locked from the outside. Chancellor Varick struggled to recover dignity. "You've forced our hand. The Council cannot appear weak." Mercer nodded. "Then appear wise instead. History will thank you for it." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, reluctantly, the Chancellor's mandibles clicked. "Very well. Earth is recognized, as a sovereign member. Equal footing." The words fell like chains snapping. Mercer inclined his head, perfectly polite. "Thank you. I knew the Council would make the enlightened choice." Later, aboard the Nemesis, Hayes leaned against the command rail. "That was insane. You walked into their den knowing they wanted you dead." Mercer sat calmly, reviewing the starfield. "That's where predators make mistakes, Commander. They think a den is safe. They forget a hunter can walk out carrying the lion's teeth." She exhaled. "And if they try again?" His smile flickered, the polite mask shifting into something sharper, older. "Then we remind them why humanity didn't send diplomats first." In the council chamber, fear lingered long after Mercer's departure. For the first time in ages, the galaxy's oldest empires looked at each other not as rulers, but as prey sharing the same cage. And somewhere in that silence, the realization grew: humanity had not arrived asking permission. Humanity had arrived to stay.